All right, live for game day. This is Endgame live. That makes sense, right? So here we are, just a couple hours before kickoff, and we're going to help you with all the latest news, injury news, game time decisions, all those updates. But it finally happened, Chris. We have a game that they pulled the rug from under us. Last minute change. What's the latest that you're hearing? I believe it's Broncos Patriots that's involved.
Yeah, so apparently there was a positive test on the Patriots side, one of the staff members, and the NFL has officially moved this game to next week. So this week will be a bye week for all Patriots and Broncos. Now, I don't know what the plans are for the NFL. I haven't dove into the schedule enough. I just woke up to the news about an hour ago here on the West Coast. But next week, I believe the Patriots and the Dolphins were supposed to play. So I don't know what they're going to do with that game. I don't know how they're going to make this work. But as of now, if you have any Patriots players, if you have any Broncos players, you need to get them out of your lineup and find replacements ASAP, because you have to treat this like a bye week for those guys.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's an early bye week. The only difference is that it was announced a couple hours before kickoff. Not of this game. Now this game was set. They already were going to push it back. But now for us, fantasy football owners, we're going to have to scramble. Now there shouldn't be hopefully too many guys in that particular game. If you saw our start sit advice lineup talking about, for running back, wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback, because we break down each position each week. And we did say basically there aren't any Patriots you really should trust or worth starting other than maybe Julian Edelman, because we don't even know who the quarterback was going to be for the Patriots. So this almost helps if you have Patriots. And then on the other side, the Broncos, I liked Jerry Jeudy, and especially with Gilmore out, and Tim Patrick was kind of a deep sleeper. But other than that, there's really, this game shouldn't affect too many fantasy fortunes, I don't think, right? Not in week 5.
Yeah, I think the big one is obviously Melvin Gordon, right? If you have Melvin Gordon, you're probably starting Melvin Gordon. So I'm looking here on Yahoo at running backs that are less than 50% owned that I'd feel fairly comfortable playing. I mean, Deonte Johnson still only 44% owned. So if he somehow didn't get picked up on your waivers, I like him this week in that Cleveland offense as the RB2 with Kareem Hunt. Looking down, Justin Jackson also only 39% owned, so didn't get claimed in a lot of leagues. I think people just expect that this is going to be all Joshua Kelly, but I think it's going to be closer to 50-50. So I like Justin Jackson. A little deeper, you could go like Duke Johnson. He played a lot of the passing game downs last week over David Johnson. So against Jacksonville, I like that. I mean, other than that, you're really digging deep here. There's nobody I really like, but those guys are, pretty widely available. So if you can, that's a good replacement. Hopefully you already have somebody, or you have like a wide receiver you can flex for Melvin Gordon. But I think he's the big one, right? That most fantasy players rely on week after week, and he's going to be on a bye now.
Yeah, pretty much Gordon, a weekly RB2 at this point, with the upside for more. But that was kind of cut into this week. Philip Lindsay was supposed to return. Now, Gordon will still be the main guy, but still, we're not going to see him get everything out of the backfield, like he had the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, that would definitely be the main one. I mean, it's running back. And what's crazy is there's only 2 teams that were going to be on bye. And already, it was really thin. It was like after you get past the top 25 running backs, you're like, I don't want to start this guy. Like, I don't want to start this guy. I mean, there's really no good options. It's either someone you just plucked off waivers or somebody that you've been waiting, to kind of explode and hasn't. I mean, you roll the dice on a J.K. Dobbins, if he's going to score, if it's going to be Ingram, Devontae Freeman. I guess he's still going to get touches, but, it might be a Frank Gore week. Let's just put it that way. So every week should be a Frank Gore week. What about Bills Titans? That's the other game that was kind of in doubt, and the Titans we know is kind of a hot spot for reasons that basically are their own. I want to just throw this out there because somebody mentioned this to me, and I thought that actually was a really good idea. If it was a team's fault, they have protocols, right? They're supposed to follow. There's certain things the league put in place so that don't get COVID, and the Titans clearly broke those. So I heard it recommended that, if a team does something intentionally violating, right, and then multiple people get it because of that team maybe just forfeits the game, right? Just take the L. The other team, instead of having to rearrange all these schedules and do all this, now that would definitely screw us over for fantasy because you have teams playing odd number of games in the standings. I don't know how that would really work, but that sounds fair to me.
Yeah, but then the problem with that is apparently because the NFLPA gets hosed by the NFL owners all the time in their negotiations, if that game got forfeited, the Bills wouldn't get their game checks. The Bills players would not get their game checks. So
That makes sense.
you're basically, yeah, right. So you're basically punishing the Bills as well for the Titans not being able to follow protocol. So I don't know, unless you make the Titans pay the game checks, but I don't know, like I don't know how that would work. But anyway, that's a whole nother mess. But in regards to fantasy for this game, I would definitely be nervous if you have any Bills or Titans players. Now, the good news is this game is on Tuesday. We should have some clarity, and there are some things you can do. So the easiest one is if you have Josh Allen, and I have Josh Allen in one league, go pick up Justin Herbert. He plays against the Saints on Monday night. Great matchup. We should feel pretty good by Monday night whether or not this game is going to be played, right? Like I believe there was a new positive today, but I'm not sure on that for the Titans, but I think it was a staffer. But again, not 100% on that. But we should know by Monday night at the latest if this game has a realistic chance of playing. So if you have Josh Allen, grab Justin Herbert right now. Great matchup. I like him a lot this week anyways. Obviously, I prefer Allen. That gives you till Monday night. Now, if you have Derrick Henry or Devin Singletary, I mean, you either have to just say, you know what? Oh, well, I'm gonna put somebody else in and not risk it. The only real option I see here, I mean, I did talk about Justin Jackson only being 39% owned, but obviously he's not on the level of those guys. Or you can maybe grab Latavius Murray if he's available off the Saints, but really not a lot of good options for you here. I think you need to pivot from these guys. Unfortunately, I know if you have Derrick Henry, it's frustrating because it's another week where he's going to sit on your bench, but I think you have to do it. You can't run the risk of this game getting canceled, on Monday and you have no other options. And then you're taking a zero there, or you're putting in, some guy who gets one touch or two touches or something like that. As far as the wide receivers, I mean, AJ Brown coming off a knee injury, I think you can bench him. I know it's frustrating. Again, he's been on your bench, but I think you just leave him on your bench again. I don't think there's really any other Titans like Adam Humphries and Corey Davis were already out with COVID or on the COVID IR. I shouldn't say they have COVID. It's not official, but they're on the COVID IR. On the other side of the ball, Buffalo, obviously Diggs and John Brown. These are guys that are in your lineup every week. Now, John Brown had a calf injury last week. He aggravated it in practice this week. I don't know if you saw the video, but he was running a route and he came up hobbling. So I don't even know if he was going to play or how effective he was going to play. Obviously, Diggs is a big blow. You don't want to lose him, but I think you should just bench Stephon Diggs right now. You should have other options, right? Wide receivers pretty deep. So you should have somebody on your bench or maybe somebody on your waivers you can go grab. Yeah, it sucks. You're not going to be able to play Stephon Diggs, but you don't want to run the risk of this game getting canceled Tuesday morning and you have to take a zero because you didn't plan. I think, put a wide receiver in off your bench or grab a wide receiver off your waiver wire. Get the points now and don't worry about it. That's my advice for that game as far as fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Especially if you have Josh Allen, who's been, not just one of the top quarterbacks, but one of the top fantasy players so far in the league. He's single-handedly led some teams to victories based on this, whatever it is they're doing now, this new Buffalo, passing offense. But yeah, I mean, the thing is with quarterback, you should be able to find players in good matchups that at least kind of make up the difference enough where, it's worth swapping them out just to be safe. You don't want to take a zero. I guarantee if you take a zero at quarterback plus add in maybe another receiver, another player in your slot, you're going to lose, right? Unless your opponent happens to be in the same situation. But a guy like Herbert, I totally agree because, we talked about quarterback start sit. There's this week about 3 or 4 quarterbacks that have good matchups that you can easily stream because they're pretty much widely available. A guy like Burrow, now he's owned in most, I guess, competitive leagues, even in single quarterback leagues where people don't roster a backup. He might be available, but maybe not. Teddy Bridgewater is kind of the hot pickup this week because he's playing Atlanta, so that's a no-brainer. But people really aren't on Herbert that much, and I get it because he's going against a better team, the Saints, and you don't know the names of the receivers that he has after Keenan Allen because Mike Williams is hurt, now Eckler's hurt, so I think there's a lot of people worrying about him. But if anything, this is a good matchup because New Orleans. Tough against the run, not as tough against the pass. And I think he's going to have to pass. And he's doing it pretty well. So I'm not too worried about him getting his numbers. So I think to me, that's an easy pivot to go to Herbert. As far as Josh Allen goes and, the Bills, honestly, I would. I think I have Allen in one league. You got to bench him. Diggs, that's a little tougher to do. But again, you should have hopefully a decent option there. But I wouldn't start John Brown. There's no way. And I don't know that I would start either Bills running backs anyways, because we don't know how many touches they're going to get. So now as far as the Titans, we also did tell you throughout the week, really there's no Titans worth playing other than Derrick Henry because A.J. Brown, remember, coming off a multi-week injury, and we don't know what's going to happen as far as his target share, he's going to perform. Corey Davis, obviously out of the picture. Johnny Smith would be a nice option, but again, it's a tough defense. So
yeah, we actually did get a question from a viewer, Stephen Drake,
all right.
in regards to this game. If the Tuesday game is good to go, would you flex Deebo Samuel or Jonnu Smith?
If it's okay, for me, the easy answer there is Deebo. Unless it's a league where you're getting tight end premium and you're an extra half point for whatever, I always go with the receiver. But I get it. The fact that we just said, there's not a lot going on in Tennessee offense other than Henry. But I think if Davis is out and Brown is playing, Smith basically serves as their second receiver, right? So I get that, but the matchup is too good in Miami.
Yeah, I think you can just go Deebo anyways and feel good about it. Even if you knew the Tuesday game was going to play, I think you can go Deebo. But with the Tuesday game, in doubt, I think you just roll with Deebo and feel good about it.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's back. That's pretty good for Deebo's numbers. Again, the matchup and going against Miami. They're not the worst defense, not the worst secondary in the league. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Miami fan. They've had some tough matchups, all right. But in this case, I don't think you can see, Tennessee is not a team that's going to have a high pass volume every week, especially going against Buffalo. And I think San Francisco could kind of have its way on offense. Now they have all their pieces back. So for me, I'd still go with Deebo, the higher floor. All right, let's move along. Got a couple more players. I feel like we have to talk every week, unfortunately, about Julio Jones. Honestly, I'll just say at this point, I can't start. I can't put him in my lineup because I don't know what I'm going to get, even if he plays. What I've heard this week, as far as reports, is that, again, very limited, if anything. It doesn't sound good that even if he does play, that he'll, be active on the field. So I can't start Julio. Can you?
No, can't start Julio. I know they're once again saying he's a true game time decision. I'm pretty sure he didn't practice all week. He was game time decision last week. Came in, right, caught a few passes, and then didn't even play in the second half. So there's just way too much risk here. I know it's Julio Jones, and I know you're going to hear a lot of people that are going to tell you, you're going to read it on Twitter, you're going to see it on your fantasy shows that you watch. If Julio Jones is on the field, you got to start Julio Jones. I don't agree with that. I agree with that. This is not a time where I agree with it because the risk here is that he doesn't play, or that he only plays a few snaps, right? And he's already killed your team twice this year when he's tried to play through this injury. He's already crushed your team. So, unless you're just absolutely desperate and you have no other option other than Julio Jones, like you're in some deep, 16 team league and your team is decimated by injuries and COVID and Julio Jones is all you have left, I don't see how you can roll him out there if he plays. And I honestly don't expect him to play. And I don't even see why at this point even play him. I mean, just let him get healthy. Like you're risking one of the best wide receivers to ever play the game, right? You're risking him on an 0-3 team. Just let him rest and get 100%. I don't understand it. So no, I'm not playing Julio even if he plays.
And I think that you just hit on it. That's the key. If they were 3-0 right now, or at least 2-1, do something good. then yeah, they might just say, yeah, well, we'll send him out. But this is a team that's struggling. And obviously they're not going to give up on the season yet, but it's the writing is on the wall. Quinn is fighting for his job, and that's the reason why I think that they'll try to do whatever it is just to win. And even if they know, I bet you they know he's not going to play, or even if he does, he's nowhere close 100%. They're just going to keep him questionable just so that the opponent thinks they're going to have to game plan for Julio. That's it. All right. He is not going to, okay, I would say I give him 80% odds he sits. And even if he plays, he's not going to see more than a couple targets. He'll be a decoy. And you know what? No, there's no excuse to say, oh, I don't have a better player. Okay, unless your league restricts pickups before game time, in which case, you have no pivot choices anyways. But how about Zacchaeus in Atlanta? Because you know what Atlanta has shown last week and the week before, they'll throw it to him, number one, so Matt Ryan trusts him. And number two, it doesn't matter if Ridley or Jones are actually on the field, he'll still get targets. Okay, so to me, this is an easy pivot there is get Olamide Zacchaeus. And if you're a Julio owner, you put him in your lineup instead because he's inheriting those targets, right? He had 6 catches for 86 yards last week. Even if Ridley's better, he'll still be involved. This is a team that's going to have to pass to win. I know we like the matchup, right? And Chris, Todd Gurley was, I think, your boom pick of the week at running back, right? So I do expect Atlanta to try to run the ball, but we know Gurley isn't a workhorse anymore. It's not like they're going to, have they're going to have to pass the ball at some point. So I like Zacchaeus, kind of a low ceiling guy, but don't take another zero with Julio.
Yeah, and Zacchaeus, I just looked, still only 6% rostered on Yahoo League, so he's out there in almost every single one of your leagues.
Right.
Yeah, don't. As much as it pains me to say it, in our flex league, I have Julio, and that's a deep league, right? We start a lot of guys. We have 20-man rosters. I mean, there's not a lot on the waivers, and I'm benching Julio this week. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Now, a guy that you do, I'd say do the opposite, where if you have him, you put him in your lineup. I think it's Michael Thomas because we have heard for weeks, oh, he might practice, but he's limited, not sure. And the conventional wisdom, which actually made a lot of sense, would be that he would come back after their bye, and the bye is supposed to be next week. But now we're hearing that he is on track to return. So he's still questionable, and it's still, technically a 50-50 call here. But again, the tone, it's kind of hard to read into tone of, news updates on the internet. But the wording, right, the verbiage is very, it's key here. So for Julio, first of all, we've seen what he hasn't done, right? And we've seen how ineffective he was, but it doesn't sound good. With Michael Thomas, I don't think they would be even throwing him out there in the practice field if they didn't think he could come back. And what I've heard words like hopeful, optimistic, on track. So to me, it sounds like he is playing, and the Saints did rest him for a couple of weeks. So to me, if you have Michael Thomas, I think you do put him in your lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I think you do. I mean, it's just, if only this was a 10 a.m. game or even like a 1 p.m. game, but it's a Monday night game. So if he doesn't play, you're sitting there, scrambling. But yeah, I think at this point you got to have Michael Thomas in your lineup. It looks like he's good to go. Maybe the extra day will even be beneficial for him to be ready. So yeah, I think if you have Michael Thomas, you can feel good about him in your lineup, unlike Julio. Now, I would make sure that you have somebody from that Monday night game. Maybe Traquan Smith is still out there. Maybe Emmanuel Sanders is out there. Somebody like that if he doesn't go, you can at least pivot to that guy at the last second and not take the zero. But it does sound promising and encouraging for Michael Thomas. So I feel good about having him in my lineup.
Yeah, and that's the only problem. The difference is it's not like with Atlanta just said, well, if Julio doesn't go, go to a guy like Zacchaeus, or Hayden Hurst is going to get more targets, or they're going to do whatever. You don't know what the Saints are doing. Just admit it. We have no idea week to week what the Saints are going to do. It could be a Traquan Smith week, like it was the other day, or he could get you nothing because that's what will happen, right? It could be that they throw it to Taysom Hill 10 times. All right. I have no idea what the Saints are doing. I'm done guessing. So there isn't a clear guy where their third or fourth receiver is going to get. No, they don't do that. They just throw it to Alvin Kamara every time. So with Thomas, I'm kind of slowly, with hesitation, moving him up my rankings. I don't have him as a top 10 receiver. So even if he does play, I mean, we don't know, right? We don't know what kind of a target share he's going to get. But I think I have him maybe in my top 15 from what I can tell. So I mean, either way, if he plays, yeah, you should go ahead and play him. And if he doesn't do a whole lot, I mean, that's okay because again, you probably didn't miss out on a whole lot of other targets from somewhere else. And their opponent on that game is the Chargers. Who on the Chargers are you going to put in instead in his place? Are you going to put in Jalen Guyton and hope for the best? I mean, you could, but that's definitely taking the dice and rolling him pretty hard. Luckily, not as many other guys, big name guys, that are with that true questionable tag. That's mainly because Devontae Adams is on a bye week, so we don't have to worry about him. Mentioned Debo. Debo is in, played a little bit last week and looked pretty good. What about Raheem Mostert, though? And then now Jimmy G, that whole San Francisco offense, it's like they're magically back. Now Mostert, though, that I haven't heard much either way. I just know that he's questionable. But again, the fact he's practicing seems to indicate that he will play. Same with Jimmy G. I know you called that. You said, hey, he's practicing. They're going to play him. Sure enough, they're going to play him. But with Mostert, it's different, right? Because they have other backs that they could use. And I don't know how many touches he'll get. How are you feeling about Mostert this week? It is a good matchup.
It is a good matchup. I'm trying to find the tweet from, here it is, from Adam Schefter. 49ers, Raheem Mostert and Debo Samuel, both listed as questionable for today's game against the Dolphins. Both should be good to play per source. So you got
that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Whoever the source is.
I feel good about Mostert. It's a great matchup, right? I mean, obviously, I would have liked one more week of McKinnon getting 90+% of the snaps, especially against Miami, because he would have had top 10 upside. But I feel good about Mostert because this matchup is so good. Yeah, I feel fine about Mostert, and especially, I mean, look, we're going to be without Derrick Henry this week. Well, I shouldn't say it. We might be without Derrick Henry this week. We might be without Devin Singletary this week. We are without Melvin Gordon this week. We're without Damian Harris this week if you picked him up off waivers. Not to mention McCaffrey, Barkley, Chubb, Eckler. It's not like there's a ton of running back choices out there, right? So if you have Mostert, I think you got to play him. Now we got a question from user. By the way, user he's commenting on all our videos. He's awesome. But man, we need to know your name. We need to know your real name. So drop your real name in the chat, so we don't have to just call you user every time. So he asks, now that Mostert is playing, do I start him or Deonte Johnson against Philly and Darius Slay? And this is non-PPR. This is standard scoring.
That's an interesting question. That's not where I was expecting to go. In fact, I was going to ask, if you're somebody who drafted Mostert pretty high, and then you picked up McKinnon, right, to fill his place. Well, then how do you go this week? Because we don't know who's going to be the lead there. I still have McKinnon ranked a little higher because we've seen he doesn't need a lot of touches to be effective, and I don't think they're going to push Mostert. Now you're talking about a receiver, right? You said Deonte Johnson in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, against Darius Slay.
Yeah, and I've been fading Deonte Johnson. I'm still kind of keeping him that wide receiver 3 level, just because I like Pittsburgh's offense in general. Did you say PPR? Full
non-PPR, standard scoring.
Oh, non-PPR. See, that makes me think that I probably prefer Mostert, just because Johnson's going to rely more, I think, on volume. And yeah, you're not getting that floor because they have so many other guys they can go to, right? This could easily be a Juju game. Juju does have a nice matchup in the slot. I think he goes against Roby Coleman. So it's very easy to imagine a game where Johnson kind of gets limited. Remember, he's coming off in concussion, and they had the bye. He hasn't seen the field for a little while. So I think probably non-PPR, I would probably lean Mostert, though.
Yeah, this is actually pretty easily Mostert for me because it's non-PPR, because it's standard scoring. So even if Deonte Johnson has 6 catches for 80 yards and not a touchdown, you're only getting 8 points. And I feel pretty confident that Mostert can get you 8 points in standard scoring in this matchup. And he has just as good a chance, if not better, to score a touchdown than Deonte Johnson. So as someone who used to play in standard scoring leagues in my home league, I understand how valuable running backs are and how invaluable wide receivers can be. So I always lean the running back here. We've gotten quite a few start sit questions. Should we just jump into those, or do we have more guys to cover?
Yeah, I think let's do the questions first. I don't think there's anything else that's jumping out at me, but we definitely want to get to the questions people have. And I'll just say the only reason I even hesitate with Mostert is just because we weren't sure. We still technically aren't sure if he's going to play, but if he does, we don't know how much he'll touch the ball. But if it was just a regular Raheem Mostert week, yeah. So I'd still go with Mostert. Better chance to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I just don't think it doesn't seem to me like the 49 like Shanahan would put Mostert out there if he wasn't going to use him and play him. That's just my feeling. Because McKinnon looked great last week and he played 92% of the snaps. He could just easily say, you know what, you sit it out this week, we can roll with McKinnon again, we're good, right? Like it's not like, you know, McKinnon was terrible and he's desperate at running back. He's fine there. So I do think McKinnon, like you said, is going to have a role, and I still like McKinnon as an upside play. But I also like Mostert. So Itzy a boy 97 asked, actually, this is a good segue. Jerick McKinnon or Latavius Murray? This is pretty easy for me.
Yeah, to me, it's got to be McKinnon, even with Mostert back.
Yeah.
Already talked about the Saints, their offense. You know, we have no idea week to week what they're going to do. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was on Murray because it was a nice matchup with the run defense, and he didn't even show up. And then last week, I was like, okay, you can't. Somebody asked me about Latavius Murray again, unfortunately, and I went a different direction. And of course, what he scores 2 touchdowns. But you have no idea what's going to happen in this game. If Michael Thomas is back, that's just, you know, less attention the running backs get. So yeah, I still go McKinnon.
Yeah, it's easily McKinnon for me. I think he just has too much. We've seen he scored every week. He has a role. He has a role even when Coleman and Mostert are playing. He's going to have plenty of a role in this game with just Mostert. So yeah, I agree. Dylan Stepp asks, I can only start one of these guys for my flex. DJ Moore, Tyler Boyd, Marquise Brown, or Antonio Gibson. So one guy out of Boyd, Marquise Brown, Antonio Gibson, or DJ Moore.
The matchup begs you to start DJ Moore because it's Atlanta's secondary, which is terrible. Obviously, not as terrible as Seattle's has done, but that's, you know, that goes for everybody. You know, Boyd might be tempting too. And did we hear, was this PPR, half PPR? We don't know.
We don't know. I'm just going to assume PPR, but yeah, he didn't say. So yeah, guys, if you ask start sit questions, please specify what your league format is. That helps. But especially
yeah, the more specific
wide receivers.
Yeah, just because again we don't know, and we assume it's not a super flex because most leagues aren't. But it depends, you know, what the position is, and then you know the league construction, all that. So to me, not Brown, because it's actually not as good a matchup as you even think it is, since he's tougher against receivers. Boyd, I could be tempted, but again, I don't like the specific matchup as much. We don't know that he's going to get targeted a ton. Gibson, I do kind of have pegged for a big week, but that's not a guarantee because obviously Kyle Allen, now at quarterback. I mean, how do you think that's going to shake out for Washington? Do you think that means they're going to lean on him more in the backfield?
No, I think they'll lean on him just as much. I don't think people realize, like, I know Gibson had that big week last week, but he's not getting used as much as people think. He's not like McKissick is still getting running a lot of routes, getting a lot of the passing game work. You know, it wasn't like Gibson caught, you know, 6 passes last week or something. So this is a tough one for me. For me, it's between Boyd and Moore. And if you just need like a safe floor, I would go Boyd. If your team's pretty strong all around and you just don't want to get hit with like a clunker, I would go Boyd. But if you need a ceiling, I go DJ Moore. I know lots of people are excited about Robbie Anderson this week, and for good reason. But man, DJ Moore, this is a great matchup. We both like Bridgewater. So that's the way I look at this. I look at it as like, if you need the ceiling, you go DJ Moore. If you need the floor, you go Boyd.
Yeah, I think I would go Moore still. Again, your point on Gibson, it's exactly right. As far as his rush attempts each week, 9, 13, 9, 13. That's it, right? They're not really featuring him as a running back. I mean, he is the main guy, obviously, there because they don't have anybody else, but he's not getting a ton of carries. Really, he's getting his fantasy points through touchdowns, and you just can't bank on a touchdown. So again, if this was a standard league, non-PPR, you might get more from Gibson, but it's definitely riskier. And the Rams are one of those kind of unpredictable teams. But there's a good chance that Washington might not be able to run the ball a lot. So I go Moore. That's me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Mike Smith asked, "What's up, guys? Need help? Carson Wentz or Jimmy G or Joe Burrow start one?" I think we're going to pretty much be in agreement again, but we'll start with you. Who do you like out of these three?
To me, it's Burrow. Jimmy G, yeah, going against the Dolphins, that's a nice matchup, but they're not a team that's going to rely on him to win the game. He's not going to need to pass the ball a ton, right? Unless Fitzmagic shows up and starts slinging it against this 49er defense, which I don't expect. So, yeah, I think you can safely not start Jimmy G. I like Burrow. I mean, he's shown that they're not afraid to let him sling the ball, right? He's going to throw it regardless of how good Mixon is or isn't doing. Don't be fooled by last week and think, oh, now all of a sudden it's Mixon's the focus of the offense. No, and a lot of what he did was through the air too. So, yeah, I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, and before we get to another start sit questions, we do have a couple more that are coming in. Appreciate it, guys. Adam Schefter just tweeted out Julio Jones is inactive for today's game, so you don't have to worry about it. He can be on your bench now.
There you go.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so let's go to Chris Bauman, and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name because this is one we talked about. He's got Josh Allen. Justin Herbert is not available. His options are Daniel Jones, Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield, Phillip Rivers, or Derek Carr. So out of those guys, again, we got Jimmy G, Daniel Jones, Mayfield, Rivers, and Carr.
All right. So first off, never Baker Mayfield, but especially this week going against the top defense in the league, you can just scratch him off that list. Derek Carr is very fringe top 20 for me because obviously Kansas City's pass defense is doing a really good job this year. I know you think, well, the game script, he might have to pass the ball a lot. Doesn't mean he'll do a lot when he does have to pass the ball. So Carr for me is not the pick. I think this is where we might disagree, although I'm not sure. My rankings, I have these guys kind of neck and neck. I'm between Phillip Rivers and Daniel Jones, and neither has been really impressive. You don't want to start either one of them, but the matchup, it's either going against the Dallas defense or the Cleveland defense. Statistically, Dallas giving up 37 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, the Browns 34. So they're neck and neck in that sense. But think about who Dallas has played and think about the type of games they've had to be in. Well, obviously these teams played each other last week, but Rivers more. Now, if you're in a league that penalizes turnovers heavily, like interceptions are -3 or something, or fumbles are -3, then probably don't start either of these guys. And, what was there a fifth option?
No, those are the options.
It was Carr, Mayfield, Rivers. Oh, wait, did you say Garoppolo?
Jimmy G and Daniel Jones. Yes.
Okay. I know you're probably leaning Daniel Jones, right? You like Daniel Jones this week.
Look, here's the thing. For me, when it comes to I'm streaming at QB, I want the guy who has the most upside. Okay. I'm not looking like any of these guys can give you 15 points. Any of these guys. But only one can give you 30 plus. And that's Daniel Jones in this matchup. And we know Daniel Jones, even last year, he was great in great matchups and terrible in terrible matchups. And this is a great matchup. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I like all the Giants passing attack here. I talked about it. I think on maybe 2 of our start sit videos, but for me, it's Daniel Jones, especially when you're replacing a guy like Josh Allen. You're not looking to replace Josh Allen with 15 points. Like you need 20 plus. And to me, only one guy out of this group can get you that. And that's Daniel Jones. I mean, Derek Carr, Phillip Rivers, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy G. Yeah, they're nice, whatever, but they're going to get you like 15 points, right? That's it. That's all they're going to get you unless they luck into 3 touchdowns or unless Jimmy G dumps off a screen to Raheem Mostert and he takes it 80 yards to the house, right? So I like Daniel Jones. He's got all the upside. He's got the great matchup. I think that's the play here. Like the other guys, they just don't excite me at all.
Yeah. Okay. So looking back at my rankings, again, these need major adjusting because of all these cancellations and whatnot. But because I do have my rankings, and guys, if you want to check, they're available every week on Fantasy Pros, one of the expert rankers that's part of that consensus. I actually do have Daniel Jones ranked higher than Rivers. It's just, to me, my my difficulty in putting Jones in my lineup just because he's looked terrible, even in good matchups so far this year. And but then Rivers has kind of not looked good either, and they're probably not going to let him throw the ball 40 plus times, even if they need to. So yeah, like you said, that ceiling is definitely capped with Rivers. Same with Garoppolo, he's probably not going to throw it a ton. Don't ever start Baker Mayfield. I don't know if I already said that. And then yeah, Jones is risky. So again, unless you're in a league where you really, really get penalized hard for interceptions, and fumbles, in which case just go with Jimmy G. But yeah, I do have Jones a little bit higher too.
All right, and then do we have time for a couple more?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, it's your boy asking about two receivers. But I like both of them this week. This is actually tough for me, but T. Higgins or Golden Tate?
Golden Tate. Wow. I mean, going against Dallas, we talked about it. And the first one was who?
T. Higgins.
T. Higgins. I think to me, it's almost the same debate, right? It's the floor versus ceiling thing. We know Higgins been targeted in the red zone definitely more because the Giants don't get to the red zone. And Higgins could have a bigger game, right? We know Tate probably not going to have a monster game, but Tate is definitely the safer play. So I think it's more a matter of a philosophy. So I would lean Tate.
Yeah, I like both these guys, but I've talked about it. I like Golden Tate a lot this week. I like this whole Giants passing attack. I think he's got upside this week. I'd roll with Golden Tate as well, but I like them both. And then Jade Webb, another quarterback one. Drew Brees or Teddy B? I think we both are going to – well, I don't know, but let's go. Drew Brees or Teddy B?
Well, things done change here because Michael Thomas now all of a sudden might play, but we don't know if Michael Thomas is going to play. And that's the tough thing. I mean, that's a big difference right there, right? So, if he plays, there's certain guys like Aaron Rodgers, been without Devontae Adams, did not matter. He didn't care. He threw it to Robert Tonyan, right? He dumped it off to Jamal Williams. He's on fire this year. He's going to do, what he has to do. Drew Brees kind of done the same thing without Thomas. He's still getting 300 yards, right? Multiple touchdowns. The matchup isn't nearly as good, though. Teddy B obviously has the best matchup possible this week for quarterbacks. So I think I'd go with Teddy B.
Yeah, I'm going with Teddy B. Again, I just like the upside here. It's too high again in this matchup. He's got Robbie Anderson and he's got DJ Moore and he's got Mike Davis looking great out of the backfield. So it's not like he doesn't have the weapons. He's got the weapons. Now, obviously, he's not the quarterback that Drew Brees is, but at this point in their careers, he might be. So, I think he's good enough, and I think the matchup is great. I go Teddy B as well. And I think we got them all. I think that's it, which was pretty awesome. Was a good turnout today. So,
yeah, guys, I mean, keep them coming. And again, also, we want to try to build up that Twitter following because we're starting that account. It's at Endgame Fantasy, and we can definitely get to you that way if you don't get to us live. Maybe if you're watching this recorded. If you have questions in advance, it's okay if it's something about waiver wire and this is our start set, or if you have a question about, a trade or something that we don't even cover, whatever it is. I mean, you already know our end game here is victory, right? We want you to win, we want to help you win. So hopefully we can do that. All right. Any other last second breaking news? Like they've shut down the entire league and we're not going to play until 2021, anything like that?
Yeah, no, the last tweet was still about Julio Jones. So far, we're NFL Week 5 looks like it's still on to be played, but there could be a massive COVID outbreak. You never know.
Oh, God. Let's end on a positive. Actually, should mention we already talked about guys who are out or questionable, might not play. You have to make a switch. Let's remind you that certain guys are in. It looks pretty confirmed that it's in. Le'Veon Bell is back, so you kind of have to start him going against Arizona. Don't forget that Michael Thomas should be back, I want to say. So there's some names. And then, of course, my boy Cam Akers is going to blow up this week. He's back. Don't be surprised if he leads that backfield. Don't be surprised if he doesn't, but don't be surprised if he does. Like that's that? A little hedging.
I've never heard one right there.
I didn't say it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's possible, which means it's also possible it doesn't. All right. Yeah, I don't see anything else breaking here. So just always keep an eye, especially this year. You can't just set it and forget it with your lineups. Don't just start your studs. That doesn't work. All right. Go with the matchups, follow the statistics, the trends, and hopefully go with our advice that's going to help you win. All right. Thanks for watching, y'all.